Now let's talk about how we have to approach cracking passwords in Linux. It's actually simpler than Microsoft. So, some attack methods. You could, like Microsoft, just do a brute force login against services. Telnet, FTP, HTTP, Samba, which is their version of SMB, Secure Shell, VNC, etc. And there are a whole bunch of across-the-network brute forcers we can use. Or we can go after the place where the passwords are. Now, in Windows, we know that the passwords are in the SAM file. In Linux, they are in two files, etc passwd and etc shadow. So etc is a directory and passwd is a file inside of it. Passwd, despite the name, has just users, and shadow has the corresponding password hashes. It used to be that passwd had both, but then they moved the passwords, instead of being clear text here, to a hashed file. There's a tool that comes with John the Ripper called Unshadow. Unshadow basically takes both of these and puts them into one super password, or one super file, so that you have username, password, username, password, username, password. And that you send to the cracker. And so anyway, like I said, passwords in Linux were originally stored in clear text in etc passwd. Now they are stored as hashes in etc shadow. Now, what the hashing algorithm is depends upon the version, the distribution of Linux. Traditionally, it was MD5. It may not be anymore. Many of them use secure hash algorithm instead, one of the SHAs, but you can easily look that up. So there are a ton of, well, not a ton, but a number of tools that will crack these passwd and shadow files. And again, if you use Unshadow, put them together in one master file, it becomes really easy for them. You could dump hashes from a compromised machine. Just like we dump hashes from memory in Windows, we can dump hashes from memory in Linux and send the hashes to a password cracker. Metasploit has a module to do it. It works against both Windows and Linux. John the Ripper, Rainbow Crack, Hashcat. You could use all these tools. You could dump any clear text memories that might be stored in memory. There's a tool called MemaPenguin that can do that. You could just do pass the hash, just like we did in Windows. It works real well against the Samba service, which is basically the SMB service, because Samba will store LM and NTLM passwords or hashes just like Windows. And Metasploit has a terrific module that will do that. You could, of course, just resort to a keylogger, physical or software-based. Like Metasploit's Meterpreter has some commands, keyscan start and keyscan dump. There are USB and any number of other keyloggers, which we will talk about. Do social engineering. Kali Linux has a whole thing called the Social Engineering Toolkit. And you can use it to create fake login sites and get people's passwords that way. There are other tools that are like Wi-Fi Man in the Middle, like Wi-Fi Pumpkin, which will also be good for grabbing people's usernames and passwords. You could just get physical access to the machine, boot into another disk, and reset the root password. You boot into the operating system in what we call single user mode and just reset the root password. You could reboot, edit the bootloader, the grub, tell it to go into single user mode, change the password. Single user simply means it's offline. Nobody else can be in it. It's meant for the root to do administrative cleanup and maintenance tools. So those are some of the things we can do to approach cracking passwords in Linux. Now let's talk about the actual tools.